Thank you very much, thank you for the invitation to be here and to share this evening with you. My last memories of being in this area was when I stood against Billy Fitzpatrick. You'll know I came within 90 votes of becoming the councillor here when I stood against Billy Fitzpatrick. And I understand Neil Lindsay's here, so nice to see Neil here tonight as well. When I was campaigning, it was my early years, a long time ago, we were campaigning against the poll tax. Another example of a tax imposed in Scotland that we didn't vote for. And we used to have meetings in the old Craigroyston High School where we were campaigning against the poll tax then. And I couldn't understand why I was so exhausted when I was doing that campaign election. And it turns out I was pregnant with my first child. That first child is now 18 and she'll be getting her first vote for independence this year. Children, as mentioned, I've got a son who's 16, he also will have his vote this year, and a 9-year-old. And yes, I represent the Scottish Government, and yes, I'm doing this for my country, but I'm also doing it for the future and for my children. Because what I want to see for them is a country that's built on hope, on optimism and opportunity for all. And a Scotland that is fair and just, and that can hold its head up proudly in the world. Not to say that we're any better than any other country, but to say we're as equal as any other country in the world. And what we're facing just now is a choice of two futures. This is an exciting time for Scotland. As part of my responsibilities in external affairs in the Scottish Government, I travel, but I also meet people internationally. And the eyes of the world are on that decision that we will take this year. And perhaps we should think, what type of Scotland would you want to see? And therefore, what solution, what democratic solution would build that Scotland that you want to see? And what would a modern, progressive, social democratic country on the north of Europe actually look like if we could shape it ourselves? And all of you will have different reasons for coming here tonight. And all of you will have different reasons if you've made up your mind for voting yes as to what that would be. And I always remember what my granny used to say to me when I used to fight with my brother. And she'd put us in front of her. She'd say, right, okay, what's the story? And we'd say our story. And she said, okay, there's your truth, my truth, and the real truth. And with independence, there will be different stories about why people want to be independent. There's your independence, there's my independence, there's Colin's independence, there's Michelle's independence, and there's Robin's. But from that cauldron of ideas and possibilities, we most certainly can build a society and a country that we can be proud of, but probably more important, our children and our grandchildren can be proud of. And everyone's talking about this. Part of my responsibilities takes me to interesting places. Last week I was on top of the Forth Bridge, the Forth Rail Bridge, an amazing experience, a once-in-a-lifetime experience, up there looking, seeing everything. You could even see here and all the different kind of the places over in Fife. And I was up there and we were launching the UNESCO heritage bid for the rail bridge. And we were up and we did our interviews. It was a bit chilly, but it was nice and sunny, we could see. And when you get up there, you have to go up on a cage. It's like a lift to 75 degrees. And so I was fine actually, I was surprised, but some of the guys were a bit iffy, but you know, we were a bit scared. So we spent the time up there for about an hour, and we're about to come down the lift, and here, up at the top of the Forth Bridge, and the guy, the lift engineer, the lift operator, comes up to me and says, you're SNP, he says, are we going to win this referendum? You know, so even people at the top of the Forth Bridge are talking about this. And I think we should remember that, because each and every one of us has a responsibility to make sure we go into this referendum informed, engaged and debating. And that's a good thing, because Scotland, if anything else, it's an argument, it's a debate. We like to have that debate and discussion, and we can take on all comers. And can I just say to George Osborne, I am fed up of Westminster politicians, Westminster establishment elite coming to Scotland and telling us what we can and cannot do. Tell us what we can't do with our currency. Well, actually, in terms of our decisions, mandate respect for a yes vote in September the 18th will be what directs and dictates how government both governments will behave responsibly on the day thereafter. But it is a choice of two futures. It's not about independence versus the status quo. When you're looking and thinking about that new Scotland, what's it going to look like? And what's it going to look like if you vote no? So I want to make the case about why we can be independent, why we should be independent, and why we must be independent. Why we can be independent. There is general acknowledgement now in the debate. Compared to maybe a year ago, everybody has now acknowledged that Scotland has the financial capability of being independent. In terms of what we contribute, we know we contribute in terms of taxation, 9.9% of taxes that go to the UK. We've only got 8.4% of the population. We more than pay our own way. In terms of our strength, in terms of paying for things, in terms of paying for pensions, social security and all the rest of it, we have a capability, and in fact our public service expenditure as a percentage of GDP is less than UK. The UK's position is quite different from ours. We have a stronger position. In relation to debt, the UK's debt per GDP is much higher than it is for Scotland. Theirs is 72% of GDP, per head, ours is 62%. It's less if you take a historic share as well. So some of the problems, I think it's quite interesting to talk about the perspective of this. And we have to have confidence in our own selves and our own arguments, because other people do, and other people see the strengths that we have, all these assets that we have, all the possibilities for Scotland. In terms of our energy resources, yes, we've got oil and gas, which I would remind Mr Osborne contributes £30 billion to the balance of payments of the UK underpinning the economy. That will be Scotland's in an independent Scotland. That will be ours in terms of to deploy as we might wish. In terms of the capability, we can more than pay our own way. And I think that's going to be important in terms of where we are. David Cameron has also recognised that we more than pay our own way in terms of recognising we are capable of being an independent country. And his quote is quite interesting. So whenever MD might say this, and it's not often I do quote David Cameron, but I do quote him now, supporters of independence will always be able to cite examples of small, independent, thriving economies across Europe, such as Finland, Switzerland and Norway. It would be wrong to suggest that Scotland could not be another such successful independent country. We know we can be an independent country, we can afford independence. The opposition, the no campaign, know we can afford to be independent. So the argument has moved on now. Those arguments of a year ago have now moved on. So the question is, should we? Should we be independent? Well, think about what we have achieved. I am frustrated in the Scottish Parliament. We end up delivering results, but it's one hand tied behind our back. But look what we've done within that limited powers. Free education. In my blog, John pointed out that I was the minister who abolished tuition fees in Scotland, and that was the restoration of free education to this country. We did it because we had the political will to make sure we had free education in this country. We also delivered free personal care, and that was as a parliament. We've got free eye and dental checks. We've also defended the NHS against the privatisation, which is so damaging, and you see that south of the border. So we've all done that within a limited and fixed budget. John Swinney, as our finance secretary, has to land the budget in with no debt. It's illegal for us to do it with anything else. So he does make sure that we have a balanced budget each and every year. We're capable of running our own affairs. And there are at a point, if we're capable of running some of our affairs and doing it well, and doing it with the interest and the value of the Scottish people at hand, why are we capable of running some of the affairs, but not all of the affairs of Scotland? And this comes back to the democratic argument. Half the years since the end of the Second World War, Scotland has received a Westminster government that we have not voted for. Half of the time over that period. And that, to me, is the democratic deficit that brings us all together, whatever your perspective of whatever you want from independence and for independence. The things that we could do to transform, why should we? We can transform our society, we can transform our economy. I have got confidence in what we can do, what we're capable of. I believe that the Scottish people have great assets in their capability, in their know-how, in their ingenuity, and we've just got to liberate and make sure that that energy and that possibility, that capability can be realised, not just for some of our society, but for all of our society. We've heard so much from others as to what we can do and how we can do that, and the different ideas that we can to deal with that. But also, one of the things that we are putting forward in terms of the proposition is what you could do, for example, in childcare. Hugely important for women getting back to work, hugely important for tackling poverty in our society. But when we try and implement things in Scotland, all we're doing is putting money out but not getting the benefit of it. All the extra additional taxes or productivity that comes from more families working, more women working, goes back to the Treasury, doesn't come back to Scotland, can't be spent in Scotland. And that's the virtuous cycle that we can do with independence, is to make sure that we get the benefit of all those progressive policies that we can implement. And I want a country that does not engage in illegal wars. I want a country that doesn't have nuclear weapons. And if we look at the threats and the challenges internationally, it's not the old-fashioned type of threats that were at the time of the Berlin Wall or at the time of the 60s and the 70s. The real threats to our society as a global society are climate change. The real threats are the lack of access to water. The real threats are the lack of the inequalities that exist in societies across the world that causes pressures and causes so much difficulty and problems. They're the real problems. And wouldn't it be great if Scotland could be that type of country that contributes to solving those problems rather than exploiting the problems that exist? And to me, that really is the vision of the type of country that we can be. So there should be is that capability of what we can do. And why must we be independent? Why must we be independent? Well, it is a choice of two futures. And what does no look like? Well, no means, do you imagine waking up on September the 19th with a no vote? Do you think everybody at the Westminster establishment would be scrambling to give us more powers? Do you think they'll think, hang on Scotland, you've had your chance, that was it? Remember 1979 to 97 before anything happened. And they've had their chance. I sat in the Parliament when we were discussing the extra Scotland bill that takes our control over taxes from 7% to 15% in the Scottish Parliament. Nobody knows that there's been this this amazing bill just passed in the Scottish Parliament just a couple of years ago, because it wasn't amazing by any means. The other parties had the chance. Labour had the chance, the Tories had the chance to give us those powers just a couple of years ago, and they didn't do that. And that, to me, is a real concern, because no does look like austerity, no looks like more of the same. We have a Westminster Parliament and a Westminster establishment that is out of time, out of place, and out of touch. And if we really want to make sure we've got a Parliament you can see, a government that you can reach out to, a government that you can make sure is accountable to you on each of these issues, we need to have it soon, and we need to have it in Edinburgh for a different type of society. So we do have a special moment, an important moment that we will not have again in our lifetimes, to really make that big leap, that change, but to do it in confidence. If you believe in your neighbours, if you believe in your colleagues, if you believe in the people of Scotland, if you believe the bright, intelligent, capable people that I know that we have can run our own country. And if you look at other countries across Europe, smaller than Scotland, that sit at the top table while we sit behind, if we not only that, if you want to make sure that we are a country that stands for peace and justice and for prosperity that can be shared for all, there is only one answer, and that answer has to be yes. So on the 18th of September, when you hold Scotland's future in your hands, when you hold Scotland's sovereignty in your hands, are you going to stand forward and take it and vote yes, and take that sovereignty so you hold it to share for your children and your grandchildren in the future? Or are you going to say, it's okay, you can have it back? That's the choice, that's the decision. Great responsibility. I believe in the Scottish people, and I believe they'll vote yes.